This is the MAFEX Marvel X-Men Psylocke comic version action figure from Medicom Toy. Now, if you've seen some of my latest reviews on Marvel Legends, somehow Hasbro has managed to suck me back into Marvel. I thought I'd already quit the Marvel Legends. I thought I'd already quit the X-Men, but lo and behold, I got sucked back into that black hole. Anyway, I thought of repurchasing some of the figures I had sold, particularly Psylocke. And a buddy of mine said, why don't you look into the MAFEX Psylocke instead of repurchasing the old Hasbro Marvel Legends Psylocke, since supposedly this MAFEX Psylocke is the best version of the Jim Lee Psylocke for the 1/12 scale in the market right now, supposedly. So we'll have to wait and see till we finish the review. So I decided, okay, I'll try it out. It was sold out everywhere. I couldn't find it. Luckily, there was a shop called, let me see if I can get this right, Hobby Search Co. Ltd. in Japan. And that's the website, www.1999.co.jp. Hobby Search. They had restocked this figure for 8,360 yen plus shipping. So it comes out to about 10,760 yen shipped, or about $83 shipped. And I'd like to thank my good buddy Christian for giving me the intel and lowdown on Hobby Search and how I could get Psylocke. I mean, some of the other hobby shops that started restocking and collecting reorders for this particular figure, but Hobby Search was the least amount of funds required to purchase this figure. It sold out in a matter of hours, and they had to restock a third time just to cater to the demand. So big thanks to my buddy Christian for this. And I got it in the mail today, and I'm very, very happy. I'm happy now, but we'll have to wait and see till the end of the review if I'm really happy with this figure. Oh, by the way, I did notice that some of the local hobby shops have been collecting pre-orders as well. Some of the hobby shops online have restocked this figure, and it's going for about $95 to $100. I mean, talk about inflation, right? And some of the collectors in the community, at least here locally in Manila, are selling their figures for about $120 to $150. I mean, crazy. So let's get her out of packaging. And here is the MAFEX Psylocke in all her glory. And wow, man, this figure is terrific. I absolutely loved it. And look at her. She is standing on her toes in this really nice dynamic stance and dynamic pose, unassisted by any base or flight stand. I mean, I don't think Hasbro can do something like this. The color scheme is great. It's very comic book accurate. I love the design of her uniform. This is how Jim Lee drew her in the comic books. The face sculpt is actually bordering on the comic books. It's a little more of Silvestri, Portacio more than Jim Lee, but I'm completely okay with it. Proportions are great. I just feel the head sculpt is a little bit on the small side. I mean, it could be a little bit bigger, or either that or I'm just too used to Hasbro's big head sculpts. Articulation is pretty great. We'll talk about that later. But overall, I am just so pleased with this figure. Let's take a closer look at the details of the Psylocke figure. So here's what the entire set comes with. You've got the Psylocke figure, and she's got two head sculpts. She's got her nonchalant poker face default head sculpt and her angry battle mode, game on, game face head sculpt, and both look amazing. And like I said, they're bordering on Jim Lee sort of design, but I kind of see more of Silvestri and Portacio with these designs, but they look absolutely beautiful, gorgeous head sculpts. The hair sculpt, magnificent. Look at that, purple hair with a black wash. The accessories she comes with, you've got a clear flight stand base, you've got a single rod, and you've got two kinds of clips. You've got the standard clip, and you've got a narrow, tighter clip. And you've got a posable arm, as well as this appendage, which I think this is for resting. I have no idea what this thing is for, honestly. But I do prefer this clip and more than this one, because this one's a little tighter and it will hold the figure very securely. Now she has her katanas, 2 unsheathed katanas, very nicely detailed. Nice silver paint. She also has the sheathed katanas, 2 versions. Ones that are separate, she can hold, or you can just stick onto her belt, and a version that is much thinner that is already stuck on her sash. Now these don't have the swords. What you can do is you can remove the hilts of these previous sheathed katanas, and then you can just stick them in here like that. Not really very particular with this accessory. I'd rather she has these. She also comes with extra pairs of hands. And I love the fact that MAFEX, just like Figma, they have these clear holders for the hands so you don't lose them, so that things are in order. She's got these gripping hands, which she can grip the weapons, samurai, and the sheaths of her sword. She's got these clenched fists for punching, though they feel very relaxed. They feel like, I wish they would have been more clenched, if you know what I mean, like in the comic books. She's got these relaxed hands, and then she's got these mystic hands, I should say, these Doctor Strange hands, or Kung Fu hands. So yeah, a great assortment of extra pairs of hands. The splayed out hands. And I have the same comment with the fists. I feel that the hands are just way too relaxed. It's just like, you know, they're just open your hands, like stop, right? I would have wished that they were like the Amazing Yamaguchi, that had the hands like really just splayed out and like grabbing or holding or trying to stop something with just sheer energy or force like that. Instead of just like that, it should be like this, or how the comic books draw it. And in this regard, I think Hasbro does it better with the splayed out hands. Lastly, she has some blast effects. She has these sort of psychic shields. I guess you hold it with these, with the Kung Fu hands or the mystic hands. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of this. These shields are, no, not really. It's really more for Doctor Strange, I think, if you ask me. She has these Shoryuken hands, like punching hands that have energies. It's like an energy punch. You know what? I honestly can't remember Psylocke having these power sets in the comic books. Like energy fists of energy. Maybe in the anime, maybe in the Japanese cartoon. I don't know. Honestly, I can't remember in the comic books. Maybe she had. I just haven't read that part of her life when she was still Betsy and not Kwanon. But yeah, Shoryuken hands. That's also pretty cool. And lastly, she's got the psychic knife hands. And what's nice about these effects is the hands are already built in, so you just need to plug them onto the wrist. You don't need to find a way to stick those fists in. So I think that's great. But I think the effects they actually look pretty good. They just look a little bit too anime for me instead of comic book-ish. Also, the psychic knife, I feel, at least this version, let me get the right hand. Is this the right hand? Yeah. Let me just attach it. I mean, I've seen how Jim Lee draws Psylocke, and the psychic knife should only be up to here. And the proper length is what Hasbro has with their Psylocke. That's the proper length, but it's just too thick. It's not thin enough. This one is thin enough. This is how thin the psychic knife should be, but it's just way too long. It's something like in the movies, in Olivia Munn's Psylocke, that kind of blade that's just way too long. I don't think this one's comic book accurate. So no, it's a great effect, but it's not as accurate as I want it to be. But that's just me, you know, some people might like it. And finally, let's go talk about the figure itself. You can see some fantastic details on the figure. I love her outfit. I love the color they chose. It's like some metallic spandex or just latex that a dominatrix would normally wear. And that's how the costume was, I think, in the comic book. It was shiny, it was tight, and it was stretchy. So I think MAFEX did a wonderful job on this one. I'm just not sure if it's dark enough. I was under the impression that Psylocke's outfit was more purple than blue, but you know, this one's actually pretty good. Okay, now she's got her sash. What I'm really thinking with this mold is the head too small? And I mentioned that early in the video. I'm probably used to Hasbro's like larger than usual head sculpts, but I just kind of feel that the head could be a little bit bigger. I don't know. It's probably my imagination. I think MAFEX probably got it right, but maybe just a little bit bigger, just a notch bigger. So as far as articulation goes, the neck is on a ball joint. What's interesting is the peg that the ball joints are on are angled. So you can angle it forward like this. You can have it positioned at a forward angle. This will allow you to get the head to look down very nicely so she can, like when she's doing her crouching poses and jumping poses, that's great. But if you want her in a flying or leaping position, you're going to have to rotate this head sculpt, and then that'll allow you to, I think, do a better pose on the head backward. But my default would be facing front. Because most of the time we'll have her in like crouching poses. Okay, the shoulders, they've got these butterfly joints. They look very seamless when you move them back and forth. She's got a hinge shoulder, go also a forward and backward rotational hinge, as well as an outward hinge. There is a bicep swivel. The elbows are on double joints. Wrist articulation, it's a hinge with a swivel, so you can have the hand going up and down, or you can have it moving in and out. The torso has several ball joints. The upper torso on her breast area has a ball joint that allows you some wide range of motion. The waist is also on a ball joint, although if you move it too much forward, you do expose that gap. The pelvis, she's got two ball joints right here. And I love the fact that the hips are sculpted so beautifully. They look so seamless, so they don't have joints when they're in the prone position. But when you start articulating the legs, when you start moving the legs up and down, then all the gaps show up. So I did not expect that. So when you take photos, you can clearly see those gaps and they kind of look ugly. So you'll have to find some poses that kind of hide those gaps. And that's, I think, a very limiting thing about the articulation. It's a shame because the rotation on the ball joint is just phenomenal. Just wide range of rotation. It's just that you can't do those poses because the gaps show up. She doesn't have a thigh swivel. If I was going to critique something, thigh swivels have now become very important when posing figures. And Hasbro and Figma Figure Arts, they do, I think, a better job with that leg articulation because of the thigh swivel. But this one in particular, MAFEX, my buddy Christian told me that MAFEX never really has the thigh swivel. So I don't know why. They should look into investing to that, because that really changes the whole landscape when you're posing the figures. The knees are on double joints. There is no calf swivel. The ankles, just like the wrists, go up and down. You can rotate them. So it'll have the rocker tilt if you position the hinge properly. So you can have rocker tilts, you can have up and down motion. Very nice full directional hinge right there. And then she's got toe articulation, which is very tight. And I think they do a better job than Hasbro because you can actually have the figure standing up on her toes. Very well balanced figure. As far as paint apps go, man, stellar work. You can be assured that any figure you order, you don't really need to check the paint apps. The paint apps are going to be great. There's very little error. There's a few splotches here and there, but easily forgivable. And I think their margin of error is very, very little when it comes to quality control on the paint apps. The figure stands at about 15.5 centimeters tall, or about 6 1/8 inches tall. And for comparisons, here she is with a couple of other X-Men figures. We've got the VHS Cyclops and the retro-carded Dark Phoenix. The question is, does she scale with these Hasbro Marvel Legends figures? At first glance, she doesn't seem to. And like I said, that head sculpt is just, I think, too small for the Hasbro scale of Marvel Legends. But the body and overall scale, you know what? I think it could work. I think with a little bit of imagination, sure, I think she can fit in on the shelf with these guys. Yes, proportionally, Psylocke would be much smaller than Jean, and definitely much shorter than Scott. But there's an unmistakable disparity in terms of scale, and I just can't put my finger on it. I feel she's just a tad bit too small. It's like when you put Star Wars figures together, both SHF Figuarts, and you put it with the Hasbro Black Series, you know they just don't fit exactly. But like I said, with a bit of imagination, she can sit on your X-Men shelf. And so some final thoughts on this MAFEX Psylocke. Well, I thought it was a great figure. I really enjoyed playing around with this figure, getting her into a lot of poses, but I don't think I can give it a perfect score. The scale is just, I thought it would be in perfect scale with the Marvel Legends. Being it as my first MAFEX figure, I was a little bit disappointed that it was just about a notch smaller in scale than the Marvel Legends. So it will require a little bit of imagination just to have her fit on your X-Men Marvel Legends shelf. There's some lack of articulation on the thigh, and because of the way the parts have been sculpted, despite the wide range of articulation on a lot of their joints, or the joints of this figure, some poses will tend to show off a lot of the gaps, and I think that limits posability on this figure, particularly this one. Look at that. You can see such a big gap. It's not so much as a complaint as more of an observation, because I think because of the engineering, they have to marry that with the design and the sculpt and all that. I guess that thing could have been avoided. They couldn't have avoided that, I'm pretty sure. So, okay. Sculpt-wise, I thought this was great. It's a beautifully sculpted figure. I love the paint-apps. The colors are great. As far as accessories go, there's only a few accessories that I'm really interested in using for posing this figure. There are a lot of accessories that I felt were just too anime-ish and not accurate to the comic book. But nevertheless, I'm glad she has a ton of accessories rather than none. So yeah, okay, I'll take that. The alternate hands are pretty good. I just feel that the sculpt could have been improved. Like I said, there has to be a little bit more exaggeration on the splayed out hands, on the clenched fists and all that. That could have easily been remedied with the one designing the sculpt and all that. So yeah, is this a replacement for Psylocke in the Marvel Legends? I'm going to say yes and no. If you want a very posable, extremely posable, well-designed Psylocke figure, sure. But if you want a figure that will fit well with your Marvel Legends figures, especially the X-Men, I think you better stick it with Hasbro. So on that note, I'm going to give this figure a 9.5 out of 10. I'm sorry it's not going to get a perfect score. There's just too many shortcomings for me, in my opinion, they're not just nitpicks, they're just really fundamental to enjoying this figure. So all that said and done, which do you think did it better? It's a shame I don't have my amazing Yamaguchi Psylocke anymore, but I've handled that figure, and I think we could safely take Hasbro off the board. I think this is just going to be a comparison with just these three figures of SHF, Figma, and MAFEX. I mean, you gotta collect Hasbro. They're just so mainstream right now that as a collector, it would be unwise if you're not into Hasbro products, especially for Marvel, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, you name it, Transformers. So, okay, be that as it may, I think it's fair to say that these other three figures do a better job in terms of quality, in terms of sculpt, in terms of detail, and as such, they can command a higher price point than the regular retail Hasbro products. If I'm going to rank these three, I think MAFEX, sadly, is going to be in the bottom. I think third place goes to MAFEX. The lack of the knee rotation and thigh rotation and just all these gaps showing when you try to get the figure in poses just diminishes playability and aesthetic value for me. SHF, or SH Figure Wars, is going to come in second. I think it's great. I just feel that just like Yamaguchi, Amazing Yamaguchi, is just so fragile. You're always going to be afraid to pose it in too dynamic of a pose because you feel it's going to break. And the joints do feel not as solid as, let's say, a Figma figure. And Figma is probably going to be in my first place. Figma is going to get top spot out of these three in terms of just overall characteristics of action figure production and manufacturing. It's just a shame that you can't go full on Figma because they only do anime characters. They don't do the Star Wars, they don't do Marvel, they don't do DC, Transformers, they don't do the pop culture characters that I review on this channel. And it's really a shame because they do an excellent job. Incidentally, I will have my review of this Figma Ghost in the Shell, the Major Kusanagi. It's just I'm waiting for my replacement figure. Not replacement, I bought another one because this figure actually met an accident. So yeah, but I'm very impressed with this Figma Ghost in the Shell figure. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this MAFEX Psylocke. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.